I'm unconsciously I'm not trying to be lazy. That, okay, anyways, Krishna
Yeah, I'll not even try. Yeah, it's up to Krishna. Whatever he will do,
Yeah.
I'll accept. I'll not even
That's
try.
called the,
I mean, not specifically, purposefully, but
Yeah.
unknowingly.
Yeah. I've taken one step further.
it's, what do they call that? They call it, the python opens its mouth like this and waits for something to come into its mouth. Right? So you don't want to be like that. Well, depending on Krishna means that you have faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's a controller, overseer, permitter, and you're convinced that nothing can happen without the will of Krishna. So therefore, you continue doing your work honestly. Just like sometimes people say, good guys never win, only the bad people win. Right? So you do not, you know that from reading the Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata that virtue always triumphs over vice. Right? Virtue, or nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgatim tatagacchati. Let's take a look at this 6th chapter, 40th verse. And that verse says, 6th chapter, 40th verse.
40.
Shri Bhagavan vacha partanai vehanamutra vinasas tasya vidyate nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgatim tatagacchati. So this verse says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Prita, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. And in another place, Prabhupada translates that, one who performs auspicious activity is never overcome by evil. So, you have to have faith that by doing the right thing, Krishna will protect you. And by doing the right thing, Krishna promises that ananya chintayanto mam ye jana paryapasate tesam nitya viyuktanam yogashamam vahamyaham. So there's 2 verses that you should be aware of. 9th chapter, 22nd verse. Yes. This says, but those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So, the 2 words are yoga and shema. So, yoga means that Krishna will make it easy for you to be Krishna conscious. It's like it's easy. You have a temple here, you live close by, it's easy, right? And secondly, Krishna will protect you from falling down. That's what Shema means, it's merciful protection of the word. So here you have 2 verses that should answer your question, 9:22 and 6:40. If you continue doing good things, or auspicious things in Krishna consciousness, then you will never be overcome by evil. And if you worship Krishna with exclusive devotion, meditating on his transcendental form, then he will make Krishna consciousness easily perform, and he'll protect you from falling down. Therefore, this is what it means to depend on Krishna's goodwill. Because you have faith that if you do Krishna's work, then he's always going to protect you. And he's always going to make Krishna consciousness easily available to you. And that you'll never be overcome by evil. Okay. So that's what you should meditate on. Now, the devotee is never lazy. That is, the devotee will, if you look at the fundamental rules Prabhupada gave devotees back in 1966, you should always wake up early in the morning, take a bath, either come to Mangalarti or do Mangalarti in your home, and you should chant 16 rounds every day, offer your food, do Tulsi Puja, and then take care of your family, go to work, come back, take care of your family again, and so forth. So, how can you be lazy? How can you do all those things unless you're regulated? And if you do all those things, you get more energy. You get more energy. Krishna will sustain you. So, if you become lazy, how can you do all those things? You can't. It's impossible. So a devotee always lives a regulated life, and there are certain duties that they have to do as a devotee, and there's other duties they have to do as a parent, and other duties they have to do as an employee. So you have to map out your day, make sure you do all your duties. So it's not possible to be lazy. Otherwise you wouldn't be doing what you're supposed to do. How can you be devoted to Krishna if you don't chant your rounds, if you don't wake up early, if you don't go to sleep early? It's impossible. Chant your rounds and do all those other things. All right? So it's the word lazy does not apply to a devotee, because they can't be lazy. They have too many duties, things they have to do. So they have to be strictly regulated in their life to do all those things. Okay?
For aspiring devotees, Prabhuji.
Well, how can you be aspiring unless you follow the same rules? I mean, these rules are for everyone, for me also.
I mean, you are exalted, Prabhuji.
No, I'm just an ordinary person like anybody else. But see, there's an obligation, there's duty in life. We have to perform our duty. Our duty is to become Krishna conscious and to help others do that. And then we have other duties, like as a parent, as an employee, as a citizen, right? So, but the first duty, the most foremost duty, is to serve Krishna with love and devotion. So you're aspiring, yeah, that's what you're aspiring to, right? So you can't be aspiring unless you do your duty. Aspiring devotee unless you do your duty. You have to engage in these regulated activities. That's what the duty is. Okay. And there's another important verse in the 4th chapter. It says that Nayam lokusti na paru. 4th chapter, verse number 'Nayam lokusti ayajnasya kuto anya kuru satama. This is 4th chapter, 31st verse. It says that, O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? So here you have one verse that says that if you're always you're always serving Krishna and thinking of Krishna and doing Krishna's work, you'll never be overcome by evil. Nahi kalyana kaschit durgatam gacchati. Now here, this one says, Nayam lokosti ayajnasya kuto anya kurusatama. Without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? So if we read the purport, we'll go ahead and read the purport.
Okay, I'll read. Whatever form of material existence one is in, one is invariably ignorant of his real situation. In other words, existence in the material world is due to the multiple reactions to our sinful lives. Ignorance is the cause of sinful life, and sinful life is the cause of one's dragging on in material existence. The human form of life is the only loophole by which one may get out of this entanglement. The Vedas, therefore, give us a chance for escape by pointing out the paths of religion, economic comfort, regulated sense gratification, and at last the means to get out of the miserable condition entirely. The path of religion, or the different kinds of sacrifice recommended above, automatically solves our economic problems. By performance of yajna, we can have enough food, enough milk, etc., even if there is a so-called increase of population. When the body is fully supplied, naturally the next stage is to satisfy the senses. The Vedas prescribe, therefore, sacred marriage for regulated sense gratification. Thereby one is gradually elevated to the platform of release from material bondage, and the highest perfection of liberated life is to associate with the Supreme Lord. Perfection is achieved by performance of yajna, as described above. Now, if a person is not inclined to perform yajna according to the Vedas, how can he expect a happy life even in this body? And what to speak of another body on another planet? There are different grades of material comforts in different heavenly planets, and in all cases there is immense happiness for persons engaged in different kinds of yajna. But the highest kind of happiness that a man can achieve is to be promoted to the spiritual planets by practice of Krishna consciousness. A life of Krishna consciousness is therefore the solution to all the problems of material existence.
So, life of Krishna consciousness means sacrifice, right? Nayam lokosti ayajnasya kuto anya kurusatama. Without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? So if you have a life of sacrifice, sacrifice means you go to sleep early, wake up early, you change your rounds, you bathe twice a day minimum, you have to take care of your children, your family, you have to go to work, you have to keep the house clean, you have to come to the temple and do service. You know, those are all sacrifices that you're making. Right? And if you don't do that, then how can you be happy? This is guaranteeing. If you do all this, you'll be happy. You'll never be overcome by evil. You'll be happy. Krishna will make Krishna consciousness easy for you, and he'll protect you from falling down. All these wonderful things happen if you do this. And this is all activity, right? Devotional service is activity. You can't be lazy. Laziness is based on ignorance. Laziness is the mode of ignorance, and it leads to suffering. Right? People that just sit down and eat junk food, watch the television. Right? They die young, and they stay up late watching television, movies, and all nonsense. It's very bad for your health, and you can't be Krishna conscious if you do that. Okay, so there's another verse that our whole life is a sacrifice in Krishna consciousness. And right in the beginning it says that this life is meant to be Krishna conscious. That's the purpose of human life. To practice Krishna. The animals can't do that. Ignorant people can't do that. Lazy people can't do that. Only those people who are active in devotional service And it says, existence in material world is due to the multiple reactions to our sinful lives. So, that means that there are many horrible things that are going to happen to us due to sins that we committed previously. And we don't know when they're going to happen. Right? So there's accidents, there's sickness, there's financial problems, there's hurricanes, fire, there's diseases, sickness. You see, all these things are going to happen by our previous sinful activities. So the only way to stop that is by being active in Krishna consciousness. When you're active in Krishna consciousness, Jana Agni Dagda Karmanam, then by the fire of spiritual knowledge, all the reactions to our past sins are burned up. It's like you put paper in the fire, it burns up. And there's just ash left, there's nothing left. And the ash becomes powder, and you throw the powder and it disappears into the ground. So all our sins are burned up by devotional service. So who would not want to do this? Who would not want to be active in Krishna consciousness? Only an ignorant person. Because then they're just going to be subject to their previous karma, and there are multiple sins that we have performed in the past, not knowingly and unknowingly, both ways.
But Prabhu, how will we know that our sins are getting kind of washed away by doing devotional service? Is there a way that we can feel it or anything like that?
Yeah, it says that, first of all, you'll never be overcome by evil. Secondly, you become peaceful and happy. And third, and most important, you're able to control anger and lust and greed. Most people can't control those things. Possible for most people. Would you agree, Prabhu?
Pardon?
Would you agree? Yeah.
But Prabhu, one thing is that I cannot control my anger. I'm quite short-tempered, I just lose my fuse for no rhyme or reason. But at the same time, I don't hanker after materialistic things. I don't crave for all those things. But I have this one where I just get angry for no rhyme or reason.
No, there's a reason. Definitely a reason. Reason is, you're probably a perfectionist. You want everything to be perfect in your life. Is that right? I don't know.
No, in fact, I'm quite okay with people not doing things right. I'm quite okay with that. In fact, for that I get into a lot of trouble. Like, even if my children are doing something, I'm like, okay, you did a good job, and that kind of puts my husband off. Why don't you tell them to be perfect? But I have this problem of when you
Okay,
say,
well, give me an example. What made you angry in this past week? Give me one example.
I think it is mostly with my spouse which I get angry, not with I'm so intense that I feel ashamed of myself. The reason, after when I kind of introspect, there wouldn't be any reason for me to get so angry, but I get so...
Well, wait a minute. You're not unique.
Yeah.
Every wife, after a couple of years,
No, but
is annoyed by her husband.
Sometimes I feel it's a disease because my anger is so high. But probably somebody else who would meet me, they'll say I'm a personification of peace. But probably if you ask my spouse, he'll say...
No.
it's
See,
a
you have to understand
personality
why.
disorder.
You know. Well, okay, let's put it like
No,
this.
actually, my question is
Does your husband get angry at you when you get angry at him?
Yeah,
He does.
we both kind of... both of them are quite short-tempered.
Okay. This is called entertainment. This is called village entertainment. In the village, there's no television.
But
There are no
actually, my question
sitcoms.
is that how come despite being, doing my spiritual job the way I'm supposed to do, I'm not able to control that aspect of my life.
No, but are you chanting 16 rounds every day?
Not 16 rounds, but in general, I get up early in the morning, I finish my prayers, whatever I learned from childhood, and I do all that.
No, but see, it's good. It's good you do that. But if you want the result that you're looking for, then you have to strictly follow Krishna consciousness. See, there's a difference between Like I learned prayers. I learned a whole bunch of prayers when I was a kid. My great auntie would teach me. Right? It would take me like half an hour to 45 minutes before I go to sleep. I had to say all the prayers. Right? And she taught me one by one. But that's not necessarily going to save you from becoming angry. Because that's like custom and habit. Krishna consciousness, and especially chanting Hare Krishna, is different. It is a transcendental thing. I mean, kids learn prayers. Kids even learn how to recite whole chapters of Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they have understanding. And it's good. It's better than memorizing Harry Potter. But to be able to control anger, one has to have deep understanding of Krishna consciousness. See, anger is destructive.
I know it's very destructive. It's not helping me in any which ways. But what you are saying is that unless and until I do 16 rounds, it's not going to help me.
Not only 16 rounds, it's until you don't commit any of the 10 offenses against the holy name.
Okay.
Right? Then the holy name. See, just chanting Hare Krishna, even committing offenses, is beneficial, but the benefit is held back until you give up committing offenses. Right? Like, for example, here's what Krishna says. Let's look at the 12th chapter. He says, Yasmin no, this 12th chapter, 15 verse, 12:15. Yasmin no dvijate loko, loka no dvijate chaya, harsha marsha bayo dvegai, mukto ya sachame priya. He for whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. So, the question is, you may or may not love your husband. Okay. But if you love Krishna, then you should never put another person into distress or anxiety. Because if you want Krishna to be dear to you and you dear to Krishna, he for whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone. So then, secondly, you shouldn't let anyone disturb you. Right? Who is equipoised, that means your mind does not flare up into anger or depression. It's equal. Always steady in your service. Always, you can't do your service if your mind is disturbed. Therefore, you keep your mind focused on pleasing Krishna. So, if you want to please Krishna, then you cannot put others into difficulty, and you should not get disturbed by anyone. You should be equipoised in happiness and distress. Well, you can be equipoised in happiness, but how about in distress? So that's the proof that you're Krishna conscious. Even when there's a highly distressful situation, you do not get disturbed. Because you keep focusing on Krishna. And as he says, Ananya Chintayanta Mam Ye Jana Paryapasate. If you're always dedicated to pleasing the Lord, then this is your duty. This verse is a duty. Right? And then equipoise in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety is very dear to me. So, if you have any feeling for Krishna, then you will follow these principles. It says, a few of a devotee's qualifications are further being described. No one is put into difficulty, anxiety, fearfulness, or dissatisfaction by such a devotee. Since a devotee is, so in other words, you may or may not love your husband, but if you love Krishna, you would never put your husband into anxiety or distress. You understand? So this is the difference between custom, following something by custom and habit, and being genuinely Krishna conscious. If you're genuinely Krishna conscious, there's no more duality. you know what your duty is. Your duty is not to put anyone into distress and not to get distressed. Because you can't do your duty if you put people in distress and get distressed. You see, that the highest principle is to please Krishna, samsiddhir haritrishna, in life. So if you really want to please Krishna, then you have to follow all these things. So then, if there's no love for Krishna, then you're not going to be able to control yourself. So, is love for a husband equal to love to Krishna? No, it's not. Because that love may be just based on the body. But love for Krishna is not based on the body, it's a spiritual experience. So, if you love Krishna, then you can love other people. Because you see the same Krishna in their heart. And you know that you have a very high threshold of duty. Advaita sarvabhutana maitra karuna evacha nirmama nirhankara samaduka sukham shami santusta satatam yogi yata atma drita nischaya mayarpita mano buddhir yomad bhakta same priya. So if you take a look at the previous verse, 12th chapter, 13th and 14th verse, one who is not envious but a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So, what is our goal in life? Our goal in life should be to please Krishna, to be very dear to Krishna. Now look at all these responsibilities you have if you want to please Krishna. So you can't be unkind to anybody, let alone your husband. You can't be unkind to anyone. You can't put anyone in distress. And you should not let anyone put you in distress by being convinced that Krishna is your protector. And then, 12th chapter, 16th verse, my devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. So this is a tremendous responsibility to be dear to Krishna. So if you try and jump over the moon, at least you'll jump over the fence. So if you try to develop these qualities out of affection for Krishna, then you'll be able to tolerate anything in the material world. Yes.
So, like we're talking of anger in this context, so does it happen that Krishna takes away your impurity, your anger, or it's our effort, or Krishna also does something? Because
Krishna is he's promising to make Krishna consciousness easy for you,
okay.
and to protect you.
Okay.
But your spiritual intelligence has to stop you from becoming greedy, angry, lusty. I mean, Krishna will give you knowledge and remembrance. But if you have material desires, you'll forget.
Okay.
And your knowledge is just theoretical, it's not practical. Because of material desires. Material desires completely corrupt the purity of one's service. Okay, as long as you have even one material desire, it's enough to corrupt everything you think, everything you do, everything you desire, everything you say, all the actions you perform. That's how dangerous material desires are. One material desire. What if you have hundreds of material desires? See? So you can't really function as a devotee by entertaining many material desires. You can have spiritual desires to please the Lord, but material desires are corrupting. Even if you can't achieve your material desires, just having them is corruption. It affects everything you do, say, and think.
So when you start to get angry, immediately you start chanting so that you control your thought.
Well, when you start to get angry, there are symptoms. You breathe heavily, you feel a certain heat,
Yeah.
right? And so it's just like you have a little scratchy throat, and then the next day you have a runny nose, and then the next day you really got a cold. Right? So you should, as soon as you have a scratchy throat, you should understand, unless I do something right now, 2 days from now my nose will be running and I'll be sick for the next week or two. So, the same way, as soon as you feel that heavy breathing, that warmth, that sort of like a wave of anger rising up into the mind and making it, start having bad thoughts, you have to control yourself. Right? If you can't control yourself, then you're in a very dangerous position because that anger is destructive. So, how do you control yourself? Well, there are 3 psychological steps before action. Thinking, feeling, willing, then you act. So Krishna consciousness, intelligence, has to act on the subtle psychological stages of thinking, feeling, and willing. So as soon as you think something inauspicious, you should begin to chant Krishna or chant Lord Nrsimhadev. Or just chant Hare Krishna until that, then it's like it is like a preventive medicine if you begin to chant, and don't let it proceed from thinking, feeling, willing, then action. You have to stop it on that. As soon as the inauspicious thought comes, you have to stop it right there before it progresses to feeling how good it'll be if I scream at my husband. And then, number 3, I can't be happy unless I do it, and then you do it. Right? You have to stop it. Okay, so now we'll come back. So what verse are we on? 30?
25.
What? 20,
Chapter 2, 25 verse.
25? I thought we did 25.
I think we will be on 27.
Yeah, we did 25.
No, we completed that. 26 also we completed.
Yeah, I think 27. Okay. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur
Yasasya hi dhruvo mrityu
dhruvam janmamritasya cha
dhruvam janmamritasya cha
tasmat apariye rite.
tasmat apariye
I'm sorry. Tasmat apariharye rite
tasmat apariye
natvam sochitamarhasi
natvam sochitamhasi
jatasya of one who has taken his birth. He, certainly. Dhruva, a fact. Mrityu, death. Dhruvam, it is also a fact. Janma, birth. Mritasya, of the dead. Cha, also. Tasmat, therefore. Apariharye, of that which is unavoidable. Arte, in the matter. Na, do not. Tvam, you. Sochitam, to lament. Arhasi, deserve. Translation. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. So let's repeat. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Okay, yes. You want to read or? Yeah.
I want to read.
Yeah.
One has to take birth according to one's activities of life. And after finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, one is going through the cycle of birth and death after another without liberation. This cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter, and war. But at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The Battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of a
Kshatriya.
Why should he be afraid or aggrieved at the death of his relatives, since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of sinful acts of which he was so afraid. By avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action.
Okay, so that's the whole thing. Selecting the wrong path of action. So in the case of Arjuna, his duty was to fight. But he was choosing the wrong path of action that was not to fight. You see. So, why did he do that? Because he was he had inordinate affection for his family members.
He was attached to the body,
Yes, exactly. Attached to the bodies of his family members, which were on both sides of the battle.
And also, wasn't he of saintly nature?
Yes, but that is not an excuse for not doing your duty. You see, war is inevitable in some circumstances. In other words, you can't be a pacifist all the time. I mean, that can be most of the time, but sometimes it's absolutely necessary to fight. Now, not everyone's qualified to fight, right? Not everyone's trained to fight. But there has to be a class of people who are trained to fight in society, right? They're called Kshatriyas. So Arjuna was trained to be a Kshatriya, and here is an ideal situation for a Kshatriya to fight. He's being asked to protect the principles of Dharma and he's refusing to do it because of overly I see too much affection for his family members. So, to fight for the right cause is the duty of a Kshatriya. Now, how do you know if something is the right cause or not? Was the Vietnam War the right cause? Was the Korean War the right cause? Was the Second World War the right cause? Was the First World War the right cause? Was the Iraq War the right cause? Was the war in Kuwait the right cause? Is the war in Somalia the right cause? I mean, you have American soldiers and American army in all those places fighting wars. Right now they're fighting wars in Syria. They just finished in Iraq. They're fighting wars in Africa. They're fighting wars they're going to be fighting wars soon on the American southern border. And they're fighting wars with they're going to be fighting a war with North Korea, maybe, with China, maybe, in the South China Sea. Now, Trump is being very much complimented for what he's done with North Korea, because today Kim Jong-un promised that he will not do any more missile testing. And he was doing missile tests just like they do firecrackers on the 4th of July, right? For the last 2-3 years, and he promised he will not do anymore. So, why? Because basically he's surrounded by the American army with nuclear bombs and things like that. They have the nuclear submarines, they have the nuclear ships, they have their troops in South Korea. They're ready to, Kim Jong-un told Trump, he said, "I got my finger on the nuclear bomb," and Trump said, "But my finger is bigger than yours, and my bombs are bigger than yours," right? So, he's scaring the heck out of these people, right? They never saw an American president like maybe, Theodore Roosevelt or someone like that, or Harry Truman, but they never saw anything like that in the last 50 years, To actually say, my finger is bigger than yours, and I got a lot more bombs than you got, that's something that Stalin said, or Hitler, but, not an American president, So, war sometimes is inevitable. You can't help it. Sometimes violence is necessary. So here, more importantly, however, is we take birth according to our activities in previous life, and the activities we're doing now will determine our next life. So, as long as we're not Krishna conscious, we're going to have to take birth again, based on our activities. If you become purely Krishna conscious, you will not have to take birth again. Krishna guarantees. And he says that in the 8th chapter. He says, eighth chapter, 21st verse, Avyakto Shara Ityuktas Tamahu Paramam Gatim Yam Prapyana Nivartante Tad Dhamma Paramam Mama. He says, that which the Vedantists described as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. So, if you go back to Godhead, you never come back again. And he says the same thing again, 15th chapter, 6th verse. He says, Natad Basayate Sriyo Na Sasanko Na Parvakaha Yadgat Vanan Nivartante Tad Dhamma Paramam Mama. That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon or by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So, the solution to the cycle of birth and death: change your activity from mundane activity to Krishna conscious activity. You go back to Godhead. And you never come back. You never take birth again. So this verse, Jatasya hi dhruva mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha, 227, one who has taken birth is sure to die, and after death one is sure to take birth again. This is for the materialists who have material desires and who are committing good and bad activities in this lifetime. They take birth again. But someone who becomes Krishna conscious, seriously, who follows all those, who develops all those characteristics explained in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, they don't come back again. And they'll never fall down again. Okay. So, also, the first chapter, Prabhupada also explains how violence is necessary sometimes. It says, there's 6 types of people. 6 types of things that, 6 kinds of aggressors. First chapter, 36 verse. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Okay, so it says, according to Vedic injunctions, there are 6 kinds of aggressors. 1, a poison giver. 2, one who sets fire to the house. 3, one who attacks with deadly weapons. 4, one who plunders riches. 5, one who occupies another's land. And 6, one who kidnaps a wife. Such aggressors are at once to be killed, and no sin is incurred by killing such aggressors. Such killing of aggressors is quite befitting any ordinary man. But Arjuna was not an ordinary man. He was saintly by character, and therefore he wanted to deal with them in saintliness. This kind of saintliness, however, is not for a Kshatriya. This answers your question. Did you address it?
Yeah.
Right. Although a responsible man in the administration of a state is required to be saintly, he should not be cowardly. For example, Lord Rama was so saintly that people even now are anxious to live in the kingdom of Lord Rama, Rama Raja. But Lord Rama never showed any cowardice. Ravana was an aggressor against Rama because Ravana kidnapped Rama's wife, Sita. But Lord Rama gave him sufficient lessons, meaning he beat him up, unparalleled in the history of the world. In Arjuna's case, however, one should consider the special type of aggressors, namely his own grandfather, own teacher, friends, sons, grandsons, etc. Because of them, Arjuna thought that he should not take the severe steps necessary against ordinary aggressors. In other words, he thought he should give them special treatment, not what he would normally do if there were people he had no connection to. Right? Besides that, saintly persons are advised to forgive. Such injunctions for saintly persons are more important than any political emergency. Arjuna considered that rather than kill his own kinsmen for political reasons, it would be better to forgive them on grounds of religion and saintly behavior. He did not therefore consider such killing profitable simply for the matter of temporary bodily happiness. After all, kingdoms and pleasures derived therefrom are not permanent, so why should he risk his life and eternal salvation by killing his own kinsmen? Arjuna's addressing of Krishna as Madhava, or the husband of the goddess of fortune, is also significant in this connection. He wanted to point out to Krishna that, as husband of the goddess of fortune, he should not induce Arjuna to take up a matter which would ultimately bring about misfortune. Krishna, however, never brings misfortune to anyone, to say nothing of his devotees. Now, this brings up the fundamental big question. Saintly persons are supposed to forgive. Now, can you forgive when you're responsible for many other people? So I'm going to give it one practical example. One practical example is Gandhi. At a certain point, he gave in to Jinnah. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the result of that was that many Hindus were massacred. And some Muslims also were massacred. Right? Now, what should Gandhi have done? See, he was acting like a saintly person. He did everything to placate Jinnah. Jinnah, by the way, he was only like a second generation Muslim. He comes from a Hindu family. His grandfather was a Hindu. Right? So he was like a new convert to Islam. He was not like, but he was a fierce convert. You know, the new converts are the most fanatical. You know. When you've been generation after generation, you're Muslim usually, you know, you're more balanced, you know. But if you're a new convert, like you have to prove your mettle, you know, you have to prove your loyalty. So that therefore, there's a saying, you know, that he's more loyal than the king. Right? So anyway, here we see Gandhi. He ultimately gave in to Jinnah, and millions of, a million people died because of it. I think a million, or at least hundreds of thousands died, and people's lives were ruined. So you can't be a sadhu, who's supposed to be a saint, and at the same time be a politician. It doesn't work. Where it only works in the case of Rama. He was a saint, but he wasn't a coward. Gandhi was a saint, or was supposed to be a saint, but he was a coward. And because of his cowardliness, masquerading as saintliness, he caused the death of so many people. And then he got what he deserved. He was preaching nonviolence, and he was violently killed by his own people, not by a Muslim, by a Hindu. You see, so you see, if you read this carefully, you see Arjuna was somewhat in the mentality of Gandhi. Right? He has a saintly. He's saintly, definitely, but that's just masking or masquerading his cowardice. Now, does he have a point? Yeah, how can I kill my guru? How can I kill the grandsire of my dynasty? How can I kill, such exalted persons? Well, that's a good consideration, but there's a higher consideration. See, this is a practical thing. Like even in ISKCON, we see this problem. Sometimes people in position of authority will not do what is necessary on the plea of we should forgive. And that is a legitimate plea, but sometimes it's not. That's a legitimate plea, but sometimes it is not. And here's a case where it is not. And in the case of Gandhi also, it was not the right path of action. Now, who's going to decide? Well, Krishna decided for Arjuna, right? He told him, you're going to, I don't accept this. You have to fight. But who's going to decide today? Who's going to be able to make a decision? These are hard decisions. They're not easy decisions to make. So, it requires deep understanding of Shastra and purity of the heart to ultimately make a decision to fight is not easy. When you're supposed to be, a saintly person, but sometimes it is necessary. Okay, so we'll think about this, and let's read this one more time, because
So, Prabhu, can you please tell what should have Gandhi he should have done in his position?
we should not have accepted. They could have gone to war. They went to war anyway. But he should have arrested Jinnah and the other people demanding separation, and used the army to suppress them.
So that would have been his decision as a politician or as a saintly person, because Brahmanas are not Kshatriyas. Brahmanas, they write
See,
advices.
Gandhi didn't know what he was. The British characterized him. They said he's a saint amongst politicians and a politician amongst saints. So because he was confused, either he should have given up and let other people handle the situation, or he should have made the right decision. But what he did is he didn't give up, and he didn't make the right decision. So and it caused the death of many people. No, they said. I mean, they've had 3 wars. It would have been. You see, this was before Pakistan had an army, had a government. He could have stopped them if he wanted to. They were controlling the government. They could have put Jinnah in jail.
Yeah, he could have kept them united by taking such a...
Yeah. There would have been fighting, but they would have. The Indian army would have won it. Maybe, but they definitely outnumbered the Muslims. Maybe there are more Muslims in what's Pakistan, but still, they would have fought it out and probably would have won.
He could have fasted not for division itself.
What?
He could have fasted because he was fasting for a lot of things. Hey, if you don't do this, I'll keep fasting. He could have fasted for. No, he could have fasted for let not the division also happen. But he didn't do. He let the division happen.
Well, yeah, he gave in. He was a coward. He made the wrong decision. I mean, we can, after the fact, we can say anything, right?
Yeah.
But it's a hard decision to make. But see, he knew he made the wrong decision because when he did that, so many people, in 24 hours, they were massacred, and kicked out of Pakistan. And then Muslims were kicked out of India also, yes.
My grandparents came from Pakistan.
Yeah, well, at least they came.
They made it.
Yeah.
Not everybody.
Other
was
people
able to-
didn't make it.
With them, not many people made it.
Yeah,
They were just killed.
yeah. So that's a real situation. The other thing, you can see, for years, with Bush and then Obama have been dealing with North Korea, and it just got worse and worse and worse. So Trump decided, now I'm going to do something different, because whatever they did before, it didn't work. They gave them money, they gave them technical, let's say, advantages, and they gave them the right to make nuclear power and things like that. It didn't get better, it got worse. So now they said, okay, now we're going to go to war. And you see he's giving in. Well, let's see what happens. You never know. But so sometimes violence is necessary. That's the point. So in that case, if Gandhi had given up his non-violence, but he couldn't. See, he couldn't do it. It wasn't part of his nature to do that. He could be a non-violent person with the British. But see, even that, the British didn't leave India because of Gandhi. They left India because of Subhash Chandra Bose and the Indian Independence Army.
Indian National Army.
Yeah, Indian National Army. Yeah, and Subhash Chandra Bose was allied with the Japanese. And that's why America threw the atomic bomb on Japan. Churchill insisted on it. He said, you have to do it, because if you don't do it, that Indian army is being funded and armed by the Japanese. The Japanese have got to be defeated, otherwise that army is going to attack India. They were afraid. Because so many Indians were leaving India and joining Bose's army in Burma, and they were getting ready to attack, and then all of India would have exploded. So they blew up Japan with the atomic bomb, and then Japan fell apart, and then the supply chain of Bose's army fell apart. But then it was too late. The British could see the writing on the wall. So therefore they decided, 2 years later, they decided to leave India. Okay, so in life, there are these difficult situations where we have to make decisions. And it's good to be saintly, but it's not good to be a coward. Right? So let's read this again.
How do we draw the line, or where do we draw the line?
Well,
I struggle with it all the time. Like, is it because of my cowardliness, or is it that I'm trying to be good?
Most people can't. That's why they have to get the advice from spiritual, genuine spiritual people.
Yeah.
You see, we're reading this now, right? Yeah. So it's pertinent.
Yeah.
Everything is not black and white.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of. Well, one thing is for sure. Prabhupada always said, if you can avoid a fight, do it at all cost. So that's what they did. They tried to avoid a fight with the Kurus at all cost. So the Pandavas had to go into exile, they had to stay incognito, they tried to kill them so many times. They tolerated all that. And then when Krishna personally asked the Kurus to give Pandavas 5 villages, right? And Duryodhana absolutely refused. And that was the last straw. That's after, 13 years of humiliation, and they tried to, strip Draupadi, all these things that they did, that was the last straw. So therefore, it was inevitable. They tried everything they could. Krishna himself was begging them, and they refused him. So, you see, you have to go to that extent.
Yeah.
Where you try everything possible and nothing works, then finally,
So then it would be very, very rare scenario wherein you really have to get violent.
Yes.
In today's day and world,
Yeah.
like to go through that extent which Pandavas went through and then had to go to the war.
Yeah.
In our day and life, we wouldn't have to resort to violence, because we perhaps wouldn't go through that extent of sufferings or humiliations or tolerance. And then if nothing works out, then you have to take the last resort as violence.
Well, most people will get ruined by going through, they wouldn't be able to tolerate so much misery.
Yeah.
But see, the Pandavas didn't make the decision, Krishna made the decision.
Yes.
That's another thing you have to take into account.
Yeah.
Pandavas would not have fought. Right? But Krishna made the decision. So here it says, such aggressors are at once to be killed, and no sin is incurred by killing such aggressors. Such killing of aggressors is quite befitting any ordinary man. Now, here's another point. You can kill someone who kidnaps your wife. You can kill someone who sets fire to your house. You can kill someone, that seizes your land. But you might be prosecuted for murder if you do that in the United States. It has to, so there's two laws functioning. One is the law of the state, and the other is the law, spiritual principles that we're reading here. Like, for example, if you look at what happened in Waco with that spiritual community that was there, the FBI set fire to the house, 38 people died. But that was after 1 month or more of a standoff. Right. So nobody in the FBI was prosecuted for murder, but 38 people died in the fire. Right. And they're not quite sure how it happened, but it looks like the FBI set the place on fire. So it's very, sometimes it's confusing to figure out what's right and what's wrong.
So, Prabhu, there's, when Bombay Temple was coming up,
Yeah.
there was an incident when it was very hard to get the land from the landowner. So there was one time when they had built a temporary temple or temporary place, altar and temporary place where devotees were staying, and they actually righted that place, and everyone
They what?
they actually demolished that establishment.
The police, everything's so corrupt in India. The owner,
Yeah.
Mr. Nair,
Mrs.
Mr. Nair, her husband, he sold the same property to 3 different people. One was ISKCON. And then all the devotees, they told Prabhupada, let's just give this place up. And Prabhupada said, no, not giving it up. They said, no, Prabhupada, why are you doing this? All the devotees, all the GBCs were arguing with Prabhupada. Right? Prabhupada said, no, we're not going to give this place up. He said, but how can we get it back? He sold it to 3 different people. And they actually signed a paper without Prabhupada's permission. And Prabhupada got really upset. He went to India. And then, more than that, the owner bribed the police, and the police came and destroyed the temple. So if there's a temple and a deity, then there's laws, special laws in India that, even if somebody else owns the place, still you can't evict them. But they came and destroyed the temple, and in less than 24 hours, the devotees rebuilt the temple and restarted. If it had been more than 24 hours, they would have been kicked out.
Yeah, and what I read was devotees didn't protest. They've been, some cops were so corrupt or so strong, they actually even dragged some female devotees when they were trying to force him to out of that place. So
Yeah.
that was...
No, but Prabhupada insisted that they not give up. And rightfully so. Look, today the Juhu Beach is probably the most successful temple in the world.
yeah.
ISKCON temple in the world. But that was, Prabhupada wanted to fight.
So in that story,
And then this Mr. Nair, he had a heart attack and died.
Yeah.
And then his wife felt really sorry that she could see that her husband was playing around with a saint, and look what happened to him. And then she finally signed the paper.
So another example, I vaguely remember it, I don't
All the
remember.
devotees wanted to give up. All of
They
them.
wanted to give up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Prabhupada said, no, we're not giving up. They said, but it's hopeless. He said, no, we're not giving up. Same thing happened in Bhubaneswar. All the devotees, when they first went to Bhubaneswar, and they stayed there for a week, and then Gaura Govinda Maharaj was sitting alone with Prabhupada at night in this one little hut, with one electric light, and there were mosquitoes all around. And Prabhupada said, Gaura Govinda Maharaj, all the GBCs do not like this place. He said, but I like it. We're going to build a temple here. Everybody said, Prabhupada, this is not a good place. It's too far away from everything. It's a jungle. No one will come here. It's a waste of time and money. Prabhupada said, no, we're going to do it. Now, Bhubaneswar became the capital of Orissa, and that temple is in a very prominent place.
yeah, we visited last year.
Very prominent place. It's highly populated now, and the place is
It's
worth.
the heart of Bhubaneswar now.
Yeah, but at that time it was a jungle.
So now it's no problem. It
Yeah.
wasn't like that.
Yes.
Now it's like The most happening town in.
One of the most, yeah, in the country. I think it's number
And
11
they're
or
building
12
an
in the
extension
country.
actually in that.
Huh?
New building is also coming on the side, multi-story
Yeah.
in Bhubaneswar.
And the neighbor?
Yeah, just beside they have. Yeah.
Oh, they-
Like Bhubaneswar ISKCON temple is like they have their own, all these things for brahmacharis, they are building all these rooms, I think, and then for Bhagavatam class and for small kids. So there's so many things are happening, but they are saying that they don't have enough fund to complete this project.
Where, in Orissa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They never have enough money. Right from the beginning they've been saying this.
But it's pretty big also, like the temple is really.
Yeah. So, several times Prabhupada took a stand. He said, no, we're gonna do it.
But is it because a guru can see much more ahead than what like ordinary souls like us, we don't see anything beyond?
Well, yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah.
And then I think Prabhupada also took a stand of letting go. So what I remember is either one of the restaurants or one of the temples in US. So like Prabhupada established a temple, but then the president there, he had a change of heart or something, and then he said that no, I own this place, I would use it how I wish to use it, and then Prabhupada said, okay, you go and do ahead, like you wish. So although it was a temple, but then Prabhupada let it go. I don't remember the details exactly. Maybe I don't know if it rings a bell or if you know about it.
No.
No? So then that's...
I don't have any
India,
bell.
Prabhupada controlled more strongly, isn't it?
What?
In India, Prabhupada controlled more strongly because his disciples got cheated more often. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and let's just talk about things that we know about,
Sure.
right? So
Yeah.
we just cited things that we know for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so it says here, Arjuna was, it says, such killing of aggressors is quite befitting any ordinary man, but Arjuna was not an ordinary person. He was saintly by character. And therefore he wanted to deal with them in saintliness. This kind of saintliness, however, is not for a Kshatriya. So now we understand Gandhi's problem. He wanted to be a saint and a politician at the same time. Right? That's a mistake. Because the saint will always want to forgive, will always want to avoid aggression, avoid violence and everything. But sometimes violence is necessary. So he can't be a saint and a politician at the same time. Lord Rama was. Why? Because he was trained as a Kshatriya, but he had all the saintly qualities. So he had both qualifications. Gandhi was never trained as a Kshatriya. He was trained as a pacifist, as a non-violent person. That was what he was noted for. So he's not qualified to be a politician or leader of society. He can be a inspiration for society, but not a leader, because he cannot make the decision properly when violence is necessary. And there, because of that, so many people die. And the wars haven't stopped. There's still war going on in Kashmir. Right? Okay, so this kind of saintliness, however, is not for a Kshatriya. Although a responsible man in the administration of a state is required to be saintly, he should not be cowardly. For example, Lord Rama was so saintly that people even now are anxious to live in the kingdom of Lord Rama, Ramaraja. But Lord Rama never showed any cowardice. Ravana was an aggressor against Rama because Ravana kidnapped Rama's wife, Sita. But Lord Rama gave him sufficient lessons, unparalleled in the history of the world. He wiped out, I don't don't know how many, 33 million Rakshasas. Ravana had a huge army. Is it bigger than the army of the Chinese? Right? And they were all Rakshasas, all fierce fighters. Rama wiped them all out.
They could all fit in Lanka.
Yeah.
A small Lanka.
In Arjuna's case, however, one should consider the special type of aggressors, namely his own grandfather, own teacher, friends, sons, grandsons, etc. Because of them, Arjuna thought that he should not take the severe steps necessary against ordinary aggressors. Okay, that's a reasonable consideration. Besides that, saintly persons are advised to forgive. Such injunctions for saintly persons are more important than any political emergency. Arjuna considered that rather than kill his own kinsmen for political reasons, it would be better to forgive them on grounds of religion and saintly behavior. Okay, so now these are mundane considerations. As soon as he says religion, it's a mundane consideration. It's not transcendental.
Spiritual, you have to do for spiritual consideration, not religious.
Yeah, religion, I mean, it depends who is interpreting the religion, the religious doctrines. So, again, we see there's a difference between following religion in an ordinary way and following transcendental Sanatana Dharma. There's a difference. So Arjuna considered that rather than kill his own kinsmen for political reasons, it would be better to forgive them on grounds of religion and saintly behavior. He did not therefore consider such killing profitable simply for the matter of temporary bodily happiness. So Arjuna is a trained Kshatriya. His duty is to fight. And he's finding reasons, mundane reasons, why he should not fight. That's the whole point. Talking about saintly behavior. Okay, fine. But as a Kshatriya, you can't supersede your duty by now thinking that you're a saint. And therefore forgive and forget, and let's all be one, and let's all hold hands and go and pray together. That's not his vocation. He's supposed to be a fighter, but only fighting to protect Dharma. Yes?
So even this is very deep, but even in a regular day as a parent, sometimes we don't like punishing. It's not violence, but we don't like punishing or giving some discipline to kids, but we are still supposed to do it. That's the right thing to do in some cases. We cannot be saintly.
If you want to train your kids properly, yeah.
Yeah, so we do it every day. I mean, in that sense that we cannot just let them get away with anything.
You have a duty to train your kids, to learn at least what's right and what's wrong. You can't. If you keep, in the 1950s there was a famous Dr. Spock, and he said, "Spare the rod and spoil the child." That means don't do like they did in previous generations, where they spank kids or punish kids for doing wrong things. Just tolerate it. So what happened in the 1960s? The kids grew up and they became hippies. And they realized, what did we do? They read his book. His book sold millions of copies. And many people became convinced. They shouldn't punish their children. They'll just learn the right thing on their own. And the kids grew up to be hippies. They revolted against their parents and revolted against society and started doing all kinds of nonsense. So this, spare the rod and spoil the child is a nonsense philosophy. Right? It sounds nice. It sounds almost Christian, spare the rod and spoil the child. But it's nonsense. It's not. No, but should you torture the child? No. But should you discipline a child? Yes. Discipline doesn't mean torture, doesn't mean abusive, but there has to be something to train a child to learn what's right and wrong. So again here, Arjuna is finding reasons why he should not fight. But that's not the position of the Kshatriya. He has to do his duty. So Krishna talks about this in the beginning of the third chapter. The third chapter, verse number 1. In the purport it says, well, Arjuna asks a question in the verse. He says, Krishna, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? So, previously Krishna explained Buddhi Yoga, or Krishna consciousness. And he's saying, you want me to fight, but I thought you said that intelligence is better than materialistic endeavors, right? So this fighting just looks like it's a political thing. So again, he still hasn't become convinced about giving up his saintliness. Right? So here, Krishna said, Prabhupada explains, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, has very elaborately described the constitution of the soul in the previous verse, in previous chapter, with a view to delivering his intimate friend Arjuna from the ocean of material grief. This is really important. People who are always lamenting, feeling sorry, feeling sad, feeling defeated, feeling that nobody understands them, feeling that they're living in a hostile world, and they have a good heart, but they're surrounded by greedy, hostile people. So people like that are not able to get anything done due to their lamentation. Always seeing the negative. The cup is always half full. The cup is always half empty instead of half full, right? So, for such people, they never see the opportunities in life. They only see the problems in life. Right? That's a negative point of view. So, Prabhupada is writing that Krishna was explaining the difference in the body and the soul to deliver his intimate friend Arjuna from the ocean of material grief. As long as we're on the bodily level, we usually become overwhelmed by grief, lamentation, negativity. Right? And the path of realization has been recommended. Buddhi Yoga, or Krishna consciousness. So another name for Krishna consciousness is Buddhi Yoga, in other words. Using your spiritual intelligence to determine the right course of action. Sometimes Krishna consciousness is misunderstood to be inertia. In other words, sometimes people think, spiritual life means I shouldn't do anything. That way there's no sin. This is what the Mayavadis think. I shouldn't get involved in this or that. I just should meditate and not do anything and just stay. Whereas Voltaire said, you should just cultivate your garden. Don't be interested in anything else. Anyway, Voltaire was a famous French writer. So that's what he means. Sometimes Krishna consciousness is misunderstood to be inertia, meaning doing nothing, being lazy. And one with such a misunderstanding often withdraws to a secluded place to become fully Krishna conscious by chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. Well, if you do that, you say, I'm just going to sit in my house or in my attic. I'm not going to answer the phone. I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And you will fall down if you do that. and not be able to maintain such a life. But without being trained in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, it is not advisable to chant the holy name of Krishna in a secluded place where one may acquire only cheap adoration from the innocent public. Yeah, people think, oh, so-and-so is chanting 300 rounds in their attic, and they've made a vow not to leave the attic for the next 20 years. They're such a pure devotee. No, they're not a pure devotee. They have copped out. They've dropped out of the dynamic Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. Did Lord Chaitanya sit in one place and just chant? No, he was always preaching, doing Sankirtan. Arjuna also thought of Krishna consciousness or Buddhi Yoga or intelligence in spiritual advancement of knowledge as something like retirement from active life and the practice of penance and austerity at a secluded place. In other words, he wanted to skillfully avoid the fighting by using Krishna consciousness as an excuse. That's the whole point. So all these thoughts, oh, it's better to be saintly and forgive. There's all a clever way of avoiding doing his duty and fighting. That's it. In other words, he's using the philosophy of Krishna consciousness for his own sense gratification. It's a very dangerous thing. But as a sincere student, he placed the matter before his master and questioned Krishna as to his best course of action. So this is the difference between a nonsense and a genuine devotee. Even though he may have weaknesses, he ultimately questions the spiritual master to find out what is the best course of action. So that's what he does here. He's questioning. Actually, his question is a challenge to Krishna. Oh, you taught me Buddhi Yoga, Krishna consciousness, but you're asking me to fight in this battle. Doesn't that seem to be a disconnect, Krishna? I see. Very intelligent. See, the way you argue in spiritual life is not arguing. You ask very good questions. That's the way you argue. And you ask them humbly. Most people know, no, I'm going to make a point here, that Krishna, this is nonsense, No, that's not the way. You ask a question humbly, but a good question, a serious question. In answer, Lord Krishna elaborately explained Karma Yoga, or working Krishna consciousness, in this third chapter. Okay. And then Prabhupada says in a letter, he says, sometimes things are interpreted in a manner dovetailing one's own sense gratification. In the Gaudiya Math, different God brothers took the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in different interpretations for sense gratification, and the whole mission was disrupted. So Prabhupada's explaining how in his own Guru's movement, after the Guru left, after Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left his body, different God brothers began to make interpretations of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's teaching to them in order to advance their own sense gratification. And the whole mission was disrupted. So, in the same way, Arjuna is using he's skillfully avoiding the fighting by using Krishna consciousness as an excuse. So what does he mean by saying, well, saintly people are supposed to forgive? It's not right to kill such exalted personalities like Bhisma Pitamaha and so forth. Well, in certain contexts that's true, but in this particular context, it's not valid. Why? Because Bhisma Pitamaha, Dronacharya, they kept quiet when Draupadi was being stripped. So, and they were not able to control Duryodhana. When Krishna asked them for 5 villages for the Pandavas, they should have interceded. They should have told Duryodhana, look, this is inappropriate. This is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You can't say no to him. And he's asking humbly to avoid war. Don't you understand? If you say no, there's going to be a war. This is the last chance to avoid it. They were not able to do that. So here's another thing. Now, why is it that people who are so elevated sometimes can't do the right thing? You can't argue. I mean, Bhisma Pitamaha is a Mahajana. Right? But the point is that Bhisma Pitamaha at that time, well, if we compare Bhisma Pitamaha and Vidura, Bhisma Pitamaha knew what the truth was. He knew that the Kurus were going to lose. He knew that Duryodhana was a bad person. But because he had accepted the duty to protect the Kurus, and because he was living as a dependent of Duryodhana, he couldn't stop it. Therefore, to be able to speak the truth, you have to be independent. You cannot depend on your livelihood on anyone. As a Brahmin, as a strict Brahmin, you have to be independent. If you're depending on someone to feed you, to clothe you, for a place to stay and everything, then you can't be independent. You can't be an independent thinker. You can't always make the right decision because you're in a dependent position. So Brahmins, they have a vow of poverty. They live very strictly, very simply, so they do not depend on anyone materially. Therefore, they can speak the truth. They have nothing to lose. No one can take something away from them because they're already living with a vow of poverty. Right? And therefore, they can speak the truth. Okay. So, how can we recognize if we're using Krishna consciousness as an excuse, or skillfully using it as to avoid doing our duty? Very interesting. So usually I'll give one example. Sometimes people think that the end justifies the means. What does that mean? The end justifies the means.
The result, whatever result you get, that's more important than how you do it.
Like
Whatever
it could be corrupt to meet your goals, but if the goal is, if your final result is very good, but you've used corruption to get there, it's still fine.
Justified.
Yes.
Still justified.
So, devotees at one point, not everybody, but a few, believe that the means justifies, the end justifies the means. Therefore, they engage in illegal activities. Right? Selling drugs and smuggling and things like that. So, Prabhupada told a story. He said once there was an island where everyone was a smuggler and a thief. So this one man got caught. So he comes in front of the judge, and the judge says, "What do you have to say for yourself?" He said, "Judge, let's be honest here. You know, everyone on this island lives by smuggling and thievery. So why are you making a case against me?" He said, "That is besides the point. You got caught. So what do you have to say for yourself right now?" So Prabhupada told the story, and he said, if you're good enough to do it, then perhaps you can tell a lie and for some benefit for Krishna consciousness. But if you get caught, you're a rascal. So therefore don't dare do it. Right? Because maybe There are some people so expert that they can do certain things and get away with it. But if you get caught, you're a rascal, and you sully the name of ISKCON. Therefore, don't take that risk. Right. Now, some people think they're so smart that they can get away with things like that, and they usually get caught. Just like this one boy, he was smuggling marijuana into Denver, Colorado. So the police caught him. The customs agents caught him. So he comes in front of the judge, and the judge said, "You have anything to say?" He said, "Yes, sir." He said, "It's not my fault." He said, "What do you mean it's not your fault? You were caught." He said, "No, but my temple president told me to do this, and I have to follow him. He's my authority." He said, "You're a temple. What temple is that?" He said, "The Hare Krishna temple." So they called the devotee, the president of the temple later on, and they said, "This guy's saying that you ordered him to smuggle marijuana into Denver, Colorado. Is this true?" He said, "No." He said, "In our temple we have 4 rules. No meeting, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit activities. So marijuana is intoxication. So how could we order him to do something that's against our rules?" The judge said, "Okay, that makes sense." So then they convicted the guy for smuggling and put him into jail. But he thought he was clever. He said, "Oh, my temple president told me to do it." Now, did the temple president tell him to do it? No. He didn't tell him to do it. So you see, you can't, if you think you're so smart that you can get away with things like that, don't even try, because if you get caught, not only you get caught, but you contaminate the name of ISKCON. So Prabhupada's point was don't even attempt it. Always follow the law and the rules. Okay, so I think we covered a lot today.
So how do we know that we are not cheating ourselves? I mean, there is that example you gave, as Prabhupada said, but in regular sense, sometimes it's not like you're always crossing the line. It's just...
I know, but no, that's why you have spiritual authorities. Now, spiritual authorities, they have to be able to give the right answer based on Shastric evidence, not just, my opinion is it's okay if you smuggle marijuana. No, your opinion, anybody can have an opinion. Joe Schmo can have an opinion. That doesn't mean the opinion is good. It has to be backed up by Shastric evidence. So, in the case of the temple president, said, "Look, judge," said, "our rules forbid us to take any intoxication. So why would we tell anyone to do such a thing? He just made this up. We did not tell him to smuggle it. We'd be violating. I would not be able to be temple president anymore if I told him to do something illegal like that. That violates not only the law, but violates our own rules." The judge understood. He said, "Okay," they put the guy in jail. If the temple president did tell him to do it, then that's a different thing. They would still put him in jail, but not as long, and they would bring charges against the temple president. So that's why you have gurus and spiritual authorities who have to be able to explain based on evidence of the Shastra. Yes.
So, Prabhu, there are some 7 aggressors or 9 aggressors against which we should, take actions. Action 6, yeah. So why saintly people should forgive them? If their action has to be taken, why would they forgive them?
Well, did Rama forgive Ravana?
No. So
Why,
that's an
maybe
example.
after he killed him, yeah.
Yeah.
But he gave him an opportunity to return Sita. He defeats Ravana in war, and then he says that, "Okay, you hand over Sita, I will forgive you. You can go back and rule your Lanka kingdom." but Ravana is like
Did not accept that offer.
Yeah, in other words, just like the Pandavas, just Krishna asked Duryodhana, give them one village each, and everything. So they tried to do everything to avoid the war. And Rama, and many people asked Ravana, and Sita asked Ravana, and
Ravana's wife.
Mandodari asked Ravana, Vibhishan asked Ravana, Hanuman asked Ravana. They all asked him, just give Sita back and it'll all be forgotten.
Even Kumbhakarna, please.
Gokarna also half-asked.
No, he tells Prabhu, he clearly tells before going to war to hand over Sita, and he says that everyone is going to die, but Ravana, like Duryodhana, he doesn't listen.
So the symptom of a demon is they never take good advice. Never, never, never. Therefore, they precipitate these situations where war is necessary.
In today's day and world, how do we understand which is a good advice versus which is a material advice?
Based on Shastra.
Yes, based on Shastra, but like for people like us, who may not have such deeper understanding, if we get some advice from friends or family, how do we how do we come to know that okay, this is Shastric advice versus this is not Shastric advice? Meaning, I understand that we have to learn the Shastras to be able to understand, but until that point, what is our resort?
Asking question of a spiritual authority.
Asking question, okay.
Right? No questions, no answers.
No question.
So, I mean, what's Bhagavad Gita? It's a whole bunch of questions
Yeah.
and answers. Right?
And it is interesting, like you earlier explained about saintliness, the Satriya, and then like cowardice as well. Like Pandavas and Lord Rama, they gave all the opportunities to the demons, to the Kauravas or to Ravana. They did not accept their offer. So then after the last offer was made, they did not back out. They did not back out. They went ahead and they escalated, they fought the war. Yeah, I was just trying to kind of, put that thought like through in the sense
Yeah,
like,
Rama went through 14 years
yes,
of misery. Right?
yeah,
Pandavas went through 13 years of misery.
yeah,
And then, after all that, there had to be a war.
yeah,
In other words, they were not proactive about the war.
yeah, yeah.
They did everything they could to avoid it.
Yeah.
But
And
then
they were not cowardice also. Like
were not
it was required, they did it.
Yeah.
It was required, they did it. I'm just thinking like that's a good example for us to kind of keep in mind and see like okay, when to back off versus when not to back. Thank you.
Prabhuji, once I had read a letter, it was written by a female devotee to Prabhupada,
Yeah.
where she was inquiring about why should we be engaged in devotional service if chanting is that, like it's so was emphasizing on chanting, so why can't we just sit down and chant? Then Prabhupada said that in that case you will have to eat only once, and that very little, only if you will get it. So can you do that way? Like he has put it in a very different way, but like that was the...
Yes, they can eat once an hour.
But if you will be eating so much and so much, then you will have to be engaged in devotional service, so that you will not be like a
Well,
servant.
not only eating, sleeping also.
Yes,
You only
so many
sleep.
things are, yeah. But if you are just emphasizing on chanting, then you better not eat it at all.
Haridas Thakur, he didn't sleep more than 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. Max.
Haridas.
Yeah. And sometimes he didn't sleep at all. And he was chanting at least 23 hours, 23 and a half hours a day. To do 175 rounds takes a very long time.
Prabhu, you were talking about Gandhi ji, and you said that he was for non-violence and yet he died very violently.
Yes,
But you
so
always
did Martin
see
Luther King, another
You
one.
always see that usually it happens. I have a doctor friend, like he used to treat cancer patients, brain
Yeah.
tumor and things like that. In the end, he succumbed to that and he died.
He had a brain
So whatever
tumor?
you kind of,
He had a
yeah.
brain tumor.
Yeah, so whatever you fight for very passionately, in the end, ultimately you succumb to that. Why does it happen?
It could be just a circumstance, right? It's not like all the time it happens.
Or maybe it indicates something.
Well,
Because he himself suffered with that brain tumor. And
Yeah,
then
suffered from a
he
brain
passed
tumor.
away and-
Well, see, the whole idea is to live simply, simple living, high thinking, right? So living simply means eating simply, being regulated in your habits and things like that. Then you avoid most sicknesses. But if you have a complicated life, and you'll get all kinds of sicknesses. Like, you know, the most contaminated place in society is a hospital. Right? There are germs and bacteria and sickness all over the place. And a hospital is for sick people, it's not for healthy people. So if he spends all his time in the hospital, all he has to do is forget to wash his hands once and he can get a sickness. Hospitals are very contaminated places. So, I mean, and that's, you know, like brain tumors, brain surgery, it's high tension, high stress activity. You make a little mistake, you kill somebody. Now, maybe he made a lot of money. The brain surgeons make a lot of money, but you're in a high stress activity. It's not a normal life. Better just have a normal life. Have time to chant. I bet he didn't have any time to chant. He's too busy performing surgeries. It's getting complicated here.
कहाँ रखने की जगह है?
One question, Prabhuji. So this is like from personal experience, trying to understand myself better. So last week I was booking air tickets for myself and my wife, and few hours later, after I booked the tickets, few hours later, I found a better deal on the tickets. Very well knowing that now it's done.
You come off.
Because, you know, if I were, yeah, now it's done. But I still thought that let me give a call to the company from which I booked the ticket and ask for a price adjustment. Very well knowing that most likely it will not happen. I still did it, and I debated a little over the phone with them that hey, why not, because you advertised it the way like I can cancel the ticket within 24 hours, and
You can?
I mean that's how they advertised it, but then there are fine prints saying that okay, there are terms and conditions that you will have a $25 per person cancellation fee, etc. in the fine prints, like in terms and agreements. So I asked them, and they said no, it cannot be done. The question is, me asking them for a price match, it was not a big amount, it was like $30 or so.
Yeah.
Me asking for a price match, was it my hankering, or was it like, yeah, what was I'm just trying to understand what was I trying to do there. Even though I thought I knew that, yeah, when I'm going to ask them, they will refuse. If I debate with them, they will not agree. It will be like waste of time for 30 to 45 minutes. And then after that, go on, move on with it, accept it. Question is, I asked them, I had that conversation for 20 to 30 minutes. What does that mean? What does it indicate about me? Like, is it hankering after money, or what it is?
It's false ego.
This is false ego? Okay.
You pride yourself on being able to get the best deal. But even you make a mistake sometimes.
Absolutely. All the time.
I wouldn't say all the time, but sometimes.
Okay.
And it irks it piques your
false ego.
sense of, being very shrewd.
Yeah.
So you're willing to waste an hour. I mean, it depends how fanatical you are. You could say, well, $25 penalty, but I saved $30 there, so I'm still $5 ahead. I'll do it. Right?
Yeah.
But how much are you worth an hour?
Yeah.
You're probably worth, $100 an hour.
Yeah.
So if you take that into account, you could have spent that hour reading Srimad Bhagavatam.
So okay, so I think I got my answer. Meaning it indicates about my false ego, about my like me thinking about like I'm the one who can get the perfect deal, but I didn't get. So it piqued my shrewdness that okay, I should try to kind of not accept that. Okay, but yes, this is a good answer. Thank you, Prabhuji. I'm learning about myself, and I agree with your assertion that yeah, this is very true.
Sometimes you just need a win, right?
Yeah, not sometimes, most of the times.
But sometimes, yeah.
So how do I fix this problem? So this is a disease. Now, how do I fix this problem?
Again, what is your goal in life?
Devotion.
And what's the difference if you paid $25 too much?
Nothing.
At least you got the ticket.
Yeah.
And that extra hour you could have used for Krishna consciousness. Yeah, you don't want to get cheated.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you did get a ticket. Hopefully you'll get to wherever you're going safely. And after you get there, you forget about it.
Yeah.
We can't always be number one.
Yes. So I mean, but long-term point of view, like how do I fix myself out of this situation? Meaning, I don't think like that. Don't think like I should be number one, or I don't think like I'm the shrewdest. How do I get out of that mentality?
No, if you're the shrewdest, then you use every spare moment to be Krishna conscious.
Yeah. I mean, but that is definitely a false ego. I am not the shrewdest, but yeah, it is very pleasing
Well,
to
it
think
depends
like
what you're
that.
going to be shrewd about.
Yeah.
You're going to be shrewd about airline tickets, or you're going to be shrewd about Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
It depends what your goal in life is,
Yeah.
what your priority is. If your priority is Krishna consciousness, then you're not going to waste time on other things.
Yeah.
One of the symptoms of a person is Krishna conscious.
Yeah.
They don't waste 1 second. How can you read the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in this lifetime? You'd have to dedicate every spare moment to do that. And then there's the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So,
Prabhuji, should I just read it by myself?
what?
When I said start reading Bhagavata, should I just start by myself? Or I should actually start listening to the lecture and start reading? Or I can just open the book and just go ahead and start reading. Will I understand?
Yeah. You should read to your husband and your son and your daughter.
Like make a 15 minutes at least every day and then I just will go through reading the purpose.
In America, traditionally, whenever they would sit down to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the father would read from the Bible about 5-10 minutes. Then they would pray together, and then they would eat. That was traditional American. So television and all these other things came and ruined everybody.
अभी हम लोग कौन से बैच में हैं?
Start from vocabulary one,
Only one.
or there is some particular
पीछे बहुत सारे कवर करना
As a family,
Probably cover lot of other topics.
if you get into that habit, sitting together, reading, discussing, respecting prasada, cleaning the dishes, as a family. Family that prays together stays together.